of the Rajya Sabha. We're very delighted to
Check.
have Mr. Raghav Chadha here with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know he needs no introduction, but just briefly, he's National Executive Member and spokesperson of the Aadmi Party, and as I mentioned, is the youngest member of the Parliament at the Rajya Sabha from the Punjab constituency. So thank you very much for making the time and being with us here today. Garima?
Hi.
Thank you so much.
So we'll jump right into it. You entered politics at a very young age. You were, what, about 21 years old?
Roughly.
Yeah.
21, 22.
Yeah. Why did you? I mean, you could have done many other things. Why did you choose to enter politics? I also ask you because in the audience today we have many Indian students. And so how do we incentivize young people into entering politics?
So first of all, I never ever thought that I'll come into mainstream politics. This was never my ambition. This was never part of my life plan. However, while I had graduated, in fact, I was in London at that point in time when I was doing some courses at the London School of Economics, when the India Against Corruption movement, led by Anna Hazare and my leader, Mr. Kejriwal, picked up. And I think that caught the popular imagination. And as hundreds and thousands of young, idealistic people, I was just one of the several volunteers that volunteered to be a part of that movement, to bring about change in society, to bring about a strong anti-graft legislation, so on and so forth. And it is at that point in time that that movement culminated into a formation of a political startup called the Aadmi Party, and I happen to be a founding member of that party. So that is how I came close to politics and became part of active politics. So I can certainly say that it's not that I chose politics, it's somehow politics chose me. And I became part of a political startup called the Aadmi Party. And the beauty is, since you mentioned about young people in this room and how we can incentivize them into participating in politics, electoral or otherwise, is that my party, the Aadmi Party, and my leader, Mr. Kejriwal, have promoted young people to come at the forefront of a leading political party, to come at the forefront of national politics. We don't, and I in particular, don't come from a political background. There's no member of mine in politics. My forefathers were not in politics. I don't think my children or grandchildren will be in politics. I don't have a political godfather in that sense. I don't come with the backing of muscle power, money power, media power that you ordinarily need to succeed in politics. But despite all of this, my party and my leader gave me an opportunity to perform. I was, with the blessings of my leader and with the grace of God, appointed as the national spokesperson of my party when I was all of 22, 23. I was appointed as the national treasurer of my party when I was, I think, 26. When at that point in time, the Congress party's national treasurer was Mr. Motilal Vora, who was, I think, 89. So that's the kind of changing face of Indian politics, if you were to call it. So that's one. As far as incentivizing young people to come at the forefront of politics is concerned, I personally feel that there's a huge gap between, the young population and the representation of young population in politics. I mean, of course, India is one of the youngest countries in the world, but our politicians are old. So therefore, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to come forward, to become a part of a political setup. You may choose to fight elections, you may choose not to fight elections, but you'll of course must try and overcome the obstacles that one has to face throughout the rough and tumble of politics and try and be part of an active political ecosystem if you wish to bring about change.
I just want to pick up on what you said over there about the gap between the youth in the country and the representation of the youth in the country. As the youngest member in the Rajya Sabha, what do you think is some of the challenges of the youth in India from a Neta's perspective? And why is it that I think the youth in in India at some points can feel so disappointed with politicians across party lines?
You see, feel disappointed, and it's not just about young people. I think we as a country feel disappointed in politicians simply because there's a huge gap between what is promised and what is delivered. There is a disillusionment with the political class, and politics and politicians are considered to be, people who are unemployable, unemployed, either the elite or the goons and thugs who have nothing better to do. And unfortunately, politics over the years have become a bad profession. That's the perception that comes with the word politics. I mean, when one is growing up, your parents and your elders, members in the family, members of the society will always encourage you to become a doctor, an engineer, a chartered accountant, an actor, a sports person. Nobody will say ki bada hoke neta banna. You know what I mean? Nobody will say become a politician. It's because there's a negative connotation to politics and politicians. Yes, there is a huge gap between the population and the representation of young people, as you just mentioned. And I'll give you a very interesting statistic, which I was reading a few weeks ago. In the first Lok Sabha, when independent India went to polls for the first time in the year 1951, the first Lok Sabha had about 26% of the people, elected people, who were below the age of 40. So the first Lok Sabha in the year 1951, when independent India went to polls for the first time, we had 26 members of parliament directly elected by the people in the Lok Sabha who were below the age of 40, 26%. In the last Lok Sabha, which just ended, which is the 17th Lok Sabha, you had only 12% of the people below the age of 40. So as country is progressing, as country is becoming younger, the representation is getting older, which is a very unfortunate case. And I think people, all of us put together, have to come forward and, be the change that we wish to see. And we can't always expect 60, 70, 80, 90-year-old politicians to understand the causes of young India, to understand what we really mean, what we really need, what are our aspirations. And therefore, if you really want your aspirations to find a voice and find the full force of law, you have to come into politics.
To explore another contradiction, leaps have been made when it comes to education. We know about the success of the education model in Delhi, but what we also see alongside is rising unemployment, especially rising youth unemployment, and what seems to be especially concerning is graduate unemployment. So how do you see this? Can this be resolved? Is there a role for state intervention, state policy?
So unemployment is perhaps the biggest electoral issue, the real biggest electoral issue. Of course, politicians and political parties would want you to believe that there are other issues which are far serious than that. But I fundamentally believe, and surveys conducted by leading agencies have shown that unemployment is perhaps the biggest issue. In fact, if my memory serves me right, Lok Niti CSDS did a survey in India's largest state, which is Uttar Pradesh, where 88% of the respondents said that unemployment is the biggest issue. Not price rise, not inflation, not lack of healthcare, not lack of quality drinking water, etc., but unemployment. That's the evil that needs to be addressed. Yes, state intervention is required. By state intervention, one doesn't mean that only sarkari naukri can solve the problem. I mean, you need to go up and beyond government jobs. Government has a limited ecosystem, a limited set of infrastructure and resources. You can't expect the government alone to be the direct job giver to a population of, more than 130 crore people. So therefore, state intervention is required in terms of curating policy, which will propel an ecosystem where instead of just job receivers, you become job givers. Instead of just employment seekers, you become employment givers. And that kind of an ecosystem perhaps has been lacking in our policy for the longest time. And it's not just incumbent upon the state governments or the central government. It's we as a country, we as an administration, we as a whole administrative system need to find a cure to this. And uh, forget creating new jobs. We are unable to give job to the existing population. I mean, the kind of addition that we have into our workforce of skilled people, of graduate people, we are unable to match that. And we are unable to even provide employment, meaningful employment, I mean, to the ones that are part of the existing workforce. Forget new additions. So I think this is a chronic problem, an acute problem that needs a solution. And it's not something which is impossible to solve. We have seen countries across the world, economies across the world that have found solutions to this growing problem of unemployment. And it is something that really needs the attention of the government.
Yeah, I think
Most fortunately, I feel it has become an electoral issue now. You know, very often in Delhi, for example, we get to face this question that why isn't the administration of Delhi, for example, been able to solve the problem of air pollution, right? And we've been facing this question for a while. And I have, for the longest time, said air pollution has not become an electoral issue. People not voting for or against administrations to get rid of air pollution. Similarly, that was perhaps has been the case in some elections where unemployment wasn't a key issue, but this election, this 2024 Lok Sabha election has shown that unemployment, price rise, key issues have become the deciding factor for a voter to vote against, vote a political party or vote against a political party, which is a wonderful change. And I think with that, political parties and administrations will take this problem far more seriously.
so. Just to pick up on the idea of graduate employment in particular and the solution to graduate unemployment, you mentioned earlier that people don't say "bada hoke neta banao," but if people did say "bada hoke neta banao," it'd be interesting to hear from you what or how successful you think political parties are being in promoting young leaders more generally. Because if suddenly a generation goes back and everyone wants to become a neta, our political party is doing enough. And what does promoting a young leader actually entail? Like, what is the ecosystem required to promote young talent in India to enter politics?
You see, I think just like any other profession or any other, work or an area of work, what you really require is a level playing field. Like, what does it take to be a good engineer? You require a level playing field. You should have a competitive exam. If you are eligible, you compete, you fight, you clear the exam, you get admitted into a good engineering college, you become an engineer, then you compete in the job market, and you get a nice job and you work for the organization, for the country, or whichever body you wish to work for. Similarly, what we essentially require is a level playing field in politics for young people to come and demonstrate the commitment and the passion that they have to work for society. Now, we don't have that level playing field. That's at the root of the problem. You need to, as I said, at the risk of sounding repetitive, you need solid political godfathers to make it big into politics. You need muscle power, money power, media power. And though many of, successful politicians who come from a dynasty are personal friends of mine, but that's the harsh truth. You need, a fancy surname to be a part of the elite club, or to be a part of to be successfully part of a political party, or to come at the forefront of mainstream politics. Now, once these challenges are addressed, I think young people can easily compete and be a part of politics. Now, my political party, I'll give you an example. Of course, barring my leader, Mr. Kejriwal, who is a very young person, who was very young when he started this political party, everyone else in my organization is rather young. I mean, the guy who runs our social media is all of 30. Half of the cabinet in Delhi and of Punjab is less than 40, 45 years. That's the average age of our Council of Ministers. Delhi and Punjab Assembly respectively have never seen such young representation. So therefore, we as a political party are doing what we can to bring young people at the forefront. But I think an ecosystem is required. And you see, political parties in India have considered social groups as vote banks, right? We all understand and know that one political party would consider, let's say, people coming from a religious majority as one social group. Another political party will consider people coming from a religious minority as a social group. Some would consider the Dalits as a social group. Some would consider the OBC as a vote bank as a social group. Some would consider the forward caste as the voting group, so on and so forth. In fact, now political parties have started considering women as a social group, a cohesive group that could perhaps vote in a particular way. Unfortunately, no political party has considered young people or youth as a cohesive social group. I think if instead of considering Dalits or Hindus or Muslims or Jats or OBCs or the forward caste people as social groups and doing vote bank politics around that, if we consider young India as a cohesive social group and do politics around that, that would serve more purpose than what is being done today. So I think that shift in politics would be a welcome change, and it is coming slowly. I think with the coming of age of new political outfits and startups like the Aam Aadmi Party, I think that notion is also slightly changing.
We can't end this session without asking anything about the elections. They did conclude earlier this month. What are the opportunities and challenges that you see of coalition politics?
Look, first of all, whether it's a majority government or it's a coalition government, both have their pros and cons. You have seen dictatorial tendencies in majority governments, whether it was the 70s government of Mrs. Gandhi or the last 10 years in India. And in coalition politics, you see weak administrations and reasonably strong administrations, from a Narasimha Rao government to a Vajpayee government. Of course, with the 2024 election results, one can say that coalition politics is back in India. And I think it's a welcome change. I think it's a welcome change because now the government of India, I feel, would be run by consensus. There will be a consensus building effort done by the ruling coalition. It will not be that the writ of a political party, which is in majority, or a handful of people who run that political party, whose writ will run large. There will have to be consensus that will involve coalition partners, and consensus that will perhaps involve key influencers and players in Indian politics. 2, it will ensure that institutions in our country and systems and mechanisms of checks and balances that had lost their voice, that had lost their spine, will regain those, the courage and the strength to speak truth to power and to do the very job that they've been asked to do. I also see that Parliament will function properly. I think there will be more weightage that will be given to standing committees and parliamentary committees, which comprises of members of Parliament. I think the review mechanism that parliamentary standing committees are supposed to do, which unfortunately was not done very effectively over the last 10 years, will be done very effectively in the coming 5 years. And of course, one will also have to pay heed to those sitting across the treasury benches in the parliament. I think the voice of the opposition will be heard now. I also hope, pray and wish that media, a section of media that had lost its voice, will regain that voice, and that should be a welcome change. I think these are the few good changes, positive results that one can certainly hope to see in the next 5 years of the new coalition era in India.
Thanks, Raghav. We'll just take a few questions from the audience. We'll collect, say, 3 questions. We don't have a lot of time. Go ahead.
Hi. Aam Aadmi Party has positioned itself as a champion against corruption. My question to you is why the current state seems to be a contradiction to everything. Your party is your leader is under the radar for corruption charges, is under the jail. You have partnered up with Congress, also known for a lot of corruption scams. So the core principle seems to be shaken for Aam Aadmi Party. Why is that?
Should I answer that?
No, we'll just
Let's collect a few, if that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is around youth, so I won't ask anything political. So,
Thank you, thank you.
so like you mentioned about the negative connotation that general people have, like, once you're growing up, about getting into politics to encourage more youth into politics. Now, my question is, apart from that, there's also an issue of salary, for example. Let's say, if you're coming, like MBAs, for example, I am Ahmedabad, if you're actually talking about that. Like, if you want to earn from in a clean way, I'm obvious, that's obvious. So, if you actually, now I know it's easier said than done, but how can you, if you're a strategy consultant of a company, how can you see it changing? Like, can there be a time, be it 10, 15, 20 years from now, where there is money, clean way money involved in politics as well, so that it actually becomes a job which people want to take? From I am Ahmedabad, working from Aadmi Party should be I want to get into Aadmi Party as a strategy consultant.
One more question, yeah? The, the lady in blue.
Hi, thank you so much for your insights. I've been very excited actually about the young working population within AAP. I, in fact, interned with AAP a couple of years back. My question is in two parts. So for the youth who don't have political backing and huge financial backing, what would be the route for us into politics without taking the bureaucratic route? And the second part is, in a democracy that fully rallies still behind identity politics community and parties, how do we as individuals with an academic background try and stand out and actually lead in politics? Thanks.
Is that okay? Shall we take those three questions?
Should I begin with yours first? Okay. Uh, which was, of course, an outrightly political question, but I'd quickly answer that, and I'll answer that in a slightly different manner because one is on foreign soil, and I don't wish to address domestic politics when I'm on foreign soil. There's a huge difference between political prisoners and people who have been castigated politically and those who've been actually charged with a crime. Now, there are laws that have been brought about over the last 7-8 years with huge amendments where a charge leveled against you is equal to a conviction against you. And that has resulted into incarceration of a lot of people. All it takes is to put a charge against you. Now, democratically elected chief ministers have been arrested in this country, in our country, which is most unfortunate. I personally feel that all of them are political prisoners, and there is a system of the criminal justice system vis-a-vis this aspect of law has been amended in a certain way that instead of assuming innocence, you are assumed to be guilty, which is most unfortunate. I hope that justice prevails, I hope that good sense prevails, and I hope that this political vendetta and incarceration comes to an end. Our resolution, our commitment to fighting corruption is something that you must see in the administration that we run in Delhi and in Punjab. Like, for example, in Punjab, we sacked our own minister within the first 60 days of our government because there was a charge of corruption, there was evidence of corruption. I'm not talking of incarceration for lack of evidence. I'm talking of sacking ministers on the basis of hardcore evidence. So that's how Aam Aadmi Party and my organization and my leader have driven by example. I'll come to your question very quickly. Yes, there is very little financial legroom or financial incentives involved in politics if you were to go it through the right way. I'll give you a personal story, a personal experience of mine. When my leader and my party wanted me to contest the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, which was 5 years ago, I initially refused. Later on, I agreed. And one of the reasons why I refused to fight the elections was that my mother didn't permit me to fight the elections. And there was a long conversation at the house and within the family, and she was very passionately opposing my getting into electoral politics. ultimately, she gave in and she permitted me to fight the election. But one of the key promises that she wanted me to make to her as she gave me her blessings to fight the elections was that I should never let go of my chartered accountancy practice. So I asked her I am flourishing as a neta. I am the leading spokesperson of a political party. I'm going to fight the Lok Sabha elections. God willing, I'll become a member of the Lok Sabha. And you still want me to pursue my chartered accountancy? I mean, what are you even saying? She said, I never want that politics should become your principal bread-winning activity. I want you to continue to maintain your lifestyle, your standard of living through your own profession. You're a qualified chartered accountant. You can do well as a chartered accountant. And that should be your principal source of income and not any other. And she also said that, today you may not require money because you have a father and a mother who can support you financially. But tomorrow, God forbid, if you ever require money on a rainy day, you should not look for any other means outside of your profession to earn money, if you know what I mean. So that's one promise that I made to her. It's a real story. Point two, yes, the salary that we as members of the Legislative Assembly or we as members of Parliament or as ministers get is abysmally low, right? I mean, twice or thrice the amount of the monthly salary one gets goes into our expenses. For example, when I was MLA from Delhi, I used to have at least 700 to 800 people visit my constituency office. Now, every person who's walking into my constituency office needs to be fed tea with biscuits. I need to entertain them. Employees need to be paid salaries. Offices need to be kept maintained, and basic operational expenses are there. But your salary doesn't, usually take care of that sort of expenses. So therefore, what we did in Delhi, and for which we were criticized heavily, is that we increased the salary of every MLA by 3 times. Simply because you have ample financial support and money in your pocket so that you don't look elsewhere to make money. That was the original thought behind it. But unfortunately, the way domestic politics functions in our country, we were castigated and we were heckled for doing so. But that was the real thought behind it. So therefore, I feel that salaries should be enough that they commensurate with the expenses that an average politician usually has to undergo. That was that. And I'm so sorry I forgot your question. If you could kindly repeat it. Well, one route is join my party. I mean, look at me. I have no financial backing. I don't have political godfathers. So one way is this. The other way, I personally feel that there are still leaders and there are still spaces within certain political parties in this country, and I can name them from whatever little I know off record, that give an opportunity to young people, that give that space to young thinking minds, academics like yourself, who wish to contribute to a political system. Now, every contributor to a political party need not be a person fighting an election. The person fighting the election is the one that you see. He's only one person, but he has a battery of people, an army of workers behind him. Politics and political parties are today a whole, gamut of huge verticals within an organization, from social media to campaign design to campaign implementation to fundraising to financial compliance to electoral compliance, election commission compliance, to designing content, curating videos, writing speeches, delivering speeches, reaching out to the media, doing public outreach. There are thousands of verticals within an organization, and I think you can, if your calling is one of those verticals, one can certainly try and approach the right political party which coincides with your ideology, which I hope is my party, and you can.
We just have a couple of minutes left. Burning questions, very snappy there.
You mentioned of your, my name is Lavanch, I study development here. You mentioned of your entry into politics during a rupture point in Indian politics, right? But for how long should we wait for rupture points like that? And how do we think of sustainable ways of having youth and issues like unemployment becoming, decisive electoral issues?
So, of course, my journey started with um, a people's movement that happens once in a few decades. I think uh, prior to India Against Corruption, the last public movement of this scale and magnitude was perhaps, if my memory serves me right, was during the emergency days, the 75 onwards, when the mighty Congress promulgated the emergency rule in the country. But you need not wait for those big events in history to jump into politics, right? Age is also catching up. So I personally feel that, one of the ways should be like what Miss Mamta Banerjee has done within her party, is that she has given 33% reservation, unannounced, unwritten, within her political party. So 33% of the office bearers will be women, 33% of MLAs will be women, 33% of members of parliament will be women, 33% of ministers in her council of ministers are women. So that's something, a cause that she strongly feels for, and she has inculcated that, adopted that in her functioning. Now, that's a great example, and I'm a big fan of hers. I think there's something similar can be done vis-a-vis participation of young people. I think there should be leaders and political parties that could possibly think around these lines. That could be one solution to the problem that you've just highlighted.
On that note, the very last question from a woman. Okay, quickly, maybe we can have both questions, but very quickly.
Thank you so much. Few benefits of being a woman here. But Raghav, my question is that as a student of development studies or public policy, one of the first case studies that we study is regarding the problems with freebie-based electoral politics. And you being a chartered accountant, you must have great insight, and you're also on the other side. So how do you observe the future of freebie-based politics in India?
Continuing his question, how do you see the safety of youth in politics?
Safety.
Yeah, I have seen like the major issue when I was in my bachelor's in Bengal. It's like my friends got heckled, got into chaos and things.
Bengal elections are a different
I know,
story
not.
altogether. Bengal, a bloody election, bloody.
I am not talking about only elections. I'm like in general.
That's a law and order problem. It's not a
Yeah.
youth-centric problem. But I'll answer both. Very quickly, coming to you. You see, what you call as a freebie, or the ecosystem of freebies, I personally would define that as welfare politics, right? The Constitution of India, which is the most respected book for our administration in that sense, the one book that all administrations and politicians in our country should follow and swear by, says, and I quote, India is a welfare state. It is incumbent upon the government to be a welfare state. Now, what is welfare and what is welfareism is something you and I can differ on. To me, welfareism, or providing welfare to the people of the country, is creating a social security net. That social security net is minimum electricity and minimum amount of water to lead a life of dignity. Access to quality public transport, quality education, quality healthcare at a cost borne by the government. This is the basic investment that any welfare state needs to do in its human resources in order to enable them to perform and live their life happily. Now, there are several developed countries across the globe that provide free education, free healthcare, free public transport, quality access to hospitals, medicines, electricity, water, etc. Now, they don't provide, they are not developed countries because they have provided this. Sorry, I beg your pardon. They can't afford to provide this because they are developed. They have become developed nations because they have been providing this to its population. That's how I look at it. So I don't consider that to be a freebie. And secondly, whatever the government or the exchequer spends on the people is effectively the money that the people are giving back to the government in terms of taxes, whether it's income tax or GST or customs or whichever tax you want to call it. So I take money from your pocket and in return give you some services for it. So I personally look at it as welfareism, politics of welfareism, and every state government does it. I mean, our opposition, the political party that opposes us, usually says freebie ka politics hai. But they themselves, as the country's government, the government of India, are providing 5 kg ration to I don't know how many crore people, I think about 80 crore people. So basic social security net, so that you have some amount of investment in the human resources for them to lead a life of dignity, is I think the duty and the responsibility of every state government. And quickly answering a question regarding the safety of youth in politics. Look, elections over the years, whether it's elections in universities in India or certain state assembly elections, have seen some amount of violence, which is something that I think nobody can justify. And the state that you've just mentioned usually sees huge amount of violence when it goes to polls, whether it's the panchayat elections or the Lok Sabha elections. And I think something that needs to be addressed. But it's principally a law and order issue. It's not an issue that has occurred because of participation of youth in politics. I think the same amount of safety is required for every candidate, be it a man or a woman or an elder person or a young person. So that is a law and order issue, and I think state governments will appropriately find solutions to that. But my personal sense is that the incidence of violence have also reduced significantly with the modern electioneering that one sees in India now.
Thank you very much, Raghav, for
Thank
your
you
time.
so much.
It's been
Thank
amazing
you.
to have
Thank
you.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Maybe we'll come back and you'll see us as politicians. Maybe a few of them will come back and you'll see
Hopefully,
them as
yeah.
politicians. But thank you very much,
Thank
Raghav.
you. Thank you. All the very best.